WoW Killer is a production of amove.tv. Check out amove TV for many more podcasts, multiple about Blizzard games. And for more of Taliesin's WoW coverage, check out Taliesin and Evitel on YouTube and twitch.tv. Greetings and welcome everyone. Happy 9.0.5 week. This is WoW Killer. It's a World of Warcraft podcast that's sometimes about a single topic, but we'll be damned if we actually stick to that this week. It's a patch week. I'm Garrett. Here's always with Taliesin. How you doing?
Was there a patch? Was there a patch this week? I thought I woke up, I did a little burp, I had a little fart, and I thought that was it. I thought it was the end, but apparently there's a patch as well.
Yeah, I mean it's a subtle one. It's a subtle one. If it wasn't for the legions of trees running around, you might not notice.
Wait, you've seen legions of trees? Well, I'm sorry, Garrett, because I'm EU, and EU people had to have a little wait on their trees.
Oh.
EU people were like, we woke up happy to get onto our trees and be all like, yeah, it's tree time, baby.
You need to drive more Priuses in the EU, man. Like, you have more Priuses, you get the trees faster. That's how it works.
Yeah, that's definitely it. It's definitely because of that. It's definitely because of some car talk that I don't understand, which is why I didn't get my tree. Definitely.
Everyone knows what a Prius is. Don't you try and...
I don't know what Prius is. I don't know what a Prius is. My goodness, what are you talking about? I have no idea what any car is, okay? Is that like a Jaguar? Okay, I know what a Jaguar is.
Is most certainly not like a Jaguar.
Well, okay, so right, fine. Well,
but I'll tell you what is.
It's very funny. You look like you've made a really funny joke.
Well, let me tell you.
I have to use my understanding of human psychology to appreciate that was a funny joke, and I appreciated it. Priuses, trees.
I'll tell you what is like as you would say it, a Jaguar. It's the ancient mount, man. That thing is that is nice. It is beautiful.
Yeah,
and I like running around in it.
I haven't seen it, so I mean, yeah, I'm sure it's lovely. I'm sure it's really good. Tell me, have you been riding around on your tree mount, Garrett?
I have actually. I have.
And how does it move? Does it move fast or does it move slow? Because I need that mother to move slow, like a tree, tree, not as slow as an actual tree. That'd be silly.
Well, you have the option of doing your walk speed, and it is animated exactly like the ancients the very first time you ever walked into Darnassus. You know, the walk speed on it, the animation cycle, it's lumbering. It really seems like it has mass as it's moving around. But its run speed is kind of hilarious. I love it.
That was my fear.
But it kind of works. Like, I don't, in a world where you needed to make this thing work at what World of Warcraft's 100% run speed is, I gotta, hat tip to the animators. It's I think as good as you could have possibly made that mount's run cycle.
Well, there's a way around that. Why did they just have to animate it running at all? Why couldn't they have just made it a very slow mount? Why couldn't they have just made it a walk speed mount? I would have been absolutely fine with that. It's a free mount. No one had to do anything to get it. Okay. It's, you can afford to troll a little bit with it. You're like, here's your tree mount, motherfuckers. And everyone mounted like, yeah, off we go. Wait, hang on. What?
It's so pretty though, man. I cannot abide that. It's such a pretty mount. Like, if it was walk speed, not everyone would be on it, and everyone is on it right now. And then my Ouroboros is just chock full of beautiful tree boys. I love it.
Or counter argument, if it was only walk speed mount, then Ouroboros would be about the only, like, walking in circles in Ouroboros would be about the only use for it, and you'd see even more trees in Ouroboros.
Well, then there'd be fewer people on their long boys, which means I would need to go somewhere else to auction. So
another simple answer to that: auctioneer on the tree mount makes perfect sense. That's why he moves so slow.
Oh, I mean, then you would have a really good shit show for your other show, because
is it obvious that all I ever want is a shit show?
All you ever want is a shit show. Are we uncovering something really like deep here and seedy? Is that?
Well, the one thing I do like about it that people have told me, and I again haven't seen it with my own eyes because no cheese for the EU, is that the leaf change color, because the leaves change color It's got 4 different leaf colors, and it said in the description that they changed according to the season. I think everyone kind of assumed that meant it would cycle through the 4 colors in a couple of minutes or a minute or something, like the kind of color changing cat from Legion, But it would seem that the leaves do literally change with the season, because everyone's tree is the same color and they haven't changed yet, and they've all just got kind of like white wintry leaves. And presumably when spring officially hits in California, then they'll change color, and everyone's tree mount will be different.
It's cool. It is. I personally like that. I mean, I wouldn't have been bummed if they just sent us 4 damn trees. Here's your 4 colors of the trees. Enjoy. Be on whatever one you want. But at the same time, if they had to go one way, I like this better than slowly cycling through the colors. I think that's cooler. I think it's really neat. Apparently that's what the tree pet does, but you're saying that, people in chat, as if I've ever done a pet battle in my life, which is foolish of you. Very foolish of you. Why would I know that? Or care about it, for that matter? This mount is massive and you can't pet battle with it. That's why it's cool. Can I tell you about the most dumb thing I was excited about with this tree mount?
What?
I was extremely concerned that in the Queen's Conservatory, that those wooden archways, when you first port into the room, the tree wasn't going to clear it. It perfectly fits underneath those archways.
That's pretty cool.
So that's because what other mount are you gonna run around in there on? You're gonna do it on your what is it, Dream Stag or whatever? No, you're gonna do it on your tree mount, and they thought about that. Although I've got to be honest with you, Garrett, I can see why you're happy about that, but I'm upset that there are any doorways that it can fit through. That's a good point. I mean, yeah. So if it didn't fit under any door, I wanted them to go big or go home. Don't make it just big enough that it doesn't fit. Make it so obscenely big that I can't even mount in Shatwrath.
Make it obnoxiously large. Make it so large that it only does the walk animation, but still travels as fast as every other mount, just because it's so big.
That would have been a good way to give it an auctioneer, but maybe not make people as mad. You make the grub that sits behind you. You make that the auctioneer, so only you can reach it.
Amazing. That's perfect. The most selfish mount of all time.
Yeah.
Because you mount it and no one else in the vicinity of about 100 yards of you in game can see anything else. And also they can't even use your auctioneer. Oh, it'd be amazing. Well, when I first got my hippo mount after I did my PvP in BFA season 1, it's very satisfying when you get a new mount and you mount it and you're pretty happy anyway because you're riding a massive hippo. You're like, wow, life doesn't get much better than this. And then you're walking around Borealis and suddenly you realize you can't fit through any archways because your hippo's so big, and you're like, oh, life can get better, and it just did. Riding a mount which doesn't fit through doorways because it's so beautiful and big and bouncy, very few feelings that good. And that's what I want from the tree. So I won't be going anywhere near Ardenweald with it. I'll be going to only hanging around places where the doorways are small and my ego can be big.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you should really just hang out in Maldraxxus with it because it sticks out like a sore thumb.
Yeah. Splendid. That's exactly what I'm going to do.
So you haven't had as much time with 9. I want to say 9.5, but it's 9.0.5 as I have. But how are you enjoying it so far?
It's fine. Yeah, I mean, it's fine. Yeah, I mean, it is what it is, isn't it? It's there's a bit of tuning and there's a bit of Valor points, and Valor points. I am one of those people that could probably get quite a lot of use out of Valor points because I do run quite a bit of Mythic Plus, but I don't run particularly high level Mythic Plus, and my item level on my main is hovering around 212, 215, something like that, and my item level on my kind of alts is a bit lower than that. So I'm just the kind of person that can make use of Valor points as it is. So I can get some gear. I'm wearing bits of gear. My chest piece is 197. My rings are 194, I think, at the moment. One of my rings is. So I am, I've got my Keystone Conqueror achievement, which is all my dungeons done at 10, which means I can upgrade any gear that drops in a Mythic Plus now. I can upgrade to 213, which, depending on the piece, would be a big improvement. Heroic Nathria level, that is. And I'm not running Nathria anymore because my guild's on raid break since killing Denathrius heroic. So like for me, it's actually perfect. I could absolutely like benefit from it and obviously I run Mythic Plus on my stream quite a bit and stuff like that. So yeah, like I am just the kind of person that's going to do well from Valor and get gear in slots at a higher item level than I would have done otherwise had it not existed. And it's pushing me to get my my Keystone Master achievement as well, which is every dungeon at 15, which is going fine as well, but that's a side project and it's something I really need a lot of motivation. I need a lot of kicks to make me want to get my Keystone Master because it is a pain in the ass.
Now I've
got that motivation there, so yeah, that's fine. That's basically it. And none of my characters have are going to be changing Covenant or anything like that, but I know some classes are, and that would be exciting. So for me, it's fine. Like the most important thing about 9.0.5 for me is that it clears the way for 9.1. We're on like a one-way train to 9.1, no take backsies, no refunds, all aboard, watching that PTR like a hawk, waiting for that shit to hit, waiting for the good stuff.
Don't you mean a 0.1 way train?
Yeah, that one. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean that is what's coming next, right? I still have this sinking feeling from the fact that we saw nothing at BlizzCon in regards to 0.1. That they might be hitting the PTR a little later than we might expect.
Oh yeah, that patch is 30 years away.
Oh, okay.
That's nowhere to be seen.
So,
and 30 years is so many years.
I'd gone like a good 2 weeks without someone making that joke.
I make that joke literally anytime I'm on the internet now. It's become my stock go-to joke.
It's how you start all your tweets now. I don't know if people have noticed this, but
you've got to take the piss out of J. Allen Brack's, like probably the least charismatic thing ever said on the internet. Like opening BlizzCon Online, and like the first thing you say is like, 30 years is so many years. And you're like, wow, we're in for a fucking roller coaster ride here, aren't we?
Hey, I mean, by comparison, it did make John Haidt seem like we were about to watch a Skid Row concert. So, like, that was pretty sick.
It's funny, actually. I did have the exact same feeling in my tummy as I would have had were I about to watch the Skid Row concert. Yeah. The same kind of feeling washed over me. That feeling of, is there a way I can feasibly get out of this right now?
Oh, jeez.
Right, fine, whatever. We want 9.1. We need 9.1. I'm a firm believer, and I've said this before, but I'm going to say it again just for the sake of it. I'm a firm believer that Shadowlands is the best opening patch of a WoW expansion in the modern era. Now, by modern era, I mean WoD onwards. I like to think like vanilla, TBC, Wrath. That's the classic era. And then you've got Kata, and you've got Mists, which I'm going to call the middle era. And then you've got WoD, Legion, BFA, and now Shadowlands. I would say that's the modern era. I think WoD, the framework for what WoD is, for what WoW is now, was kind of really put in place in WoD. And it's been like iterated on and changed and stuff like that. There's an argument that it's Legion as well, but I think WoD has more in common with Legion than it does Mists. So,
I agree.
I agree. That's the modern era for me. And it's, but for the sake of this argument, saying that Shadowlands has the best opening patch of the modern era, I would actually include Kata and Mists in that as well, because I love Mists. I thought Mists was brilliant, but it really came into its own in later patches. Mists in the beginning, it was still great because you had this amazing new continent to explore and stuff like that, and this like just incredibly strong theme, and the classes were pretty good, and lots of people get dewy-eyed thinking about the classes from Mists, but I would say Shadowlands has the best opening patch of any of them. All going to count for nothing, of course, because it's been around. It's going to, by the time 9.1 comes out, it'll have been around for probably like the best part of a year, let's be honest, and people are going to be absolutely sick of it. It's not going to be remembered as one of the best patches, one of the best opening patches. It's going to be remembered probably by the time 9.1 comes out with, you know, some derision and disdain and frustration, and all kind of like.
Yeah, I mean, most of my WoW friends are already over the opening of Shadowlands, and I mean, it's a 0.5 patch, right? Like, so I'm balling this up into the launch patch. I'm not going to distinguish from the beginning of Shadowlands and 9.0.5. I think once we get.
No, I would as well. I count the opening patch as being until the 0.1 patch comes out.
Yeah. So like, you know, even my most diehard WoW friends, they're all like, yeah, we're kind of done. And I'm with you. Like, to me, I think the beginning of this opening patch for Shadowlands, it's really close to Legion. But if I had to pick one, I think I would give it to Shadowlands as well. To be like, usually I'm burnt out by now, and I'm definitely bored right now, but I'm still playing regularly. Like, I'm surprised that I kept up with Renown. Like, I know it's not particularly hard to do, but like I got in this week and I was like, oh well, shit, okay, I'm finished. Like, I would have expected, by kind of how kind of bored I got about a month ago, that I would have just like wandered off and not like grinded my Anima for a week and missed something, but I didn't. I've kept up with it. So to me, that's a good kind of barometer of the fact that I enjoyed this. I enjoyed this opening patch, even though I did get burnt out on it. But yeah, I guess the subtext to our conversation here is that, well, this is still a 0.5 patch, and if we're both a little over the state of things, this isn't bringing a ton more to wake it up. Like, for me, the thing I'm the most excited about, Tally, so far is that I got my Anima grind done really, really fast, because I got 500 damn Anima just from doing my Souls quest, and I was like, oh sweet, I'm already halfway there. Like, I did that was like a thing I didn't know was coming in. I was like, oh damn, okay, at least I'm gonna get a lot more Anima a lot quicker.
I feel like I actually want to clarify something. I am having an absolute ball every time I log in. I'm certainly not bored of Shadowlands at the moment. But then I appreciate I'm a special case, because I'm a guy who, you know, gets to play WoW as much or as little as I want, basically. So and with any kind of, like, with people whenever I want as well. I never have to play alone. So I can log in and I can start up a stream, and I'll have a group to go and do some Mythic Plus with. So, and I love Mythic Plus. Like, I think Mythic Plus is great, even though I'm like trash at it. So I'm you know, I've got a lot that I still want to achieve on my characters and stuff. I haven't had a chance to do nearly as much PvP as I want to yet. So and you know, I'm like, one thing Shadowlands is really good at is leveling as well. So for me, having to get all of my, you know, one of every class up to max level, you know, for my own personal desires, but also for content creation and stuff as well. I'm having a great time. I look forward to logging in. I enjoy playing, whether it be with friends or by myself. I'm gutted that my raid is over. And I guess I'll try and put together some kind of like community raids and things like that to scratch that itch. But yeah, I like, Shadowlands is still great. But having said that, I appreciate that I'm a special case and not everyone plays the game in the same way as me. And yeah, I think having spoken so much about how important scheduling is before, I think the community would be right and justifiably down on the incredibly long wait in between the Shadowlands launch and 9.1. And it hurts. It's painful because, you know, from a human point of view, it's absolutely understandable. You know, like, from a human point of view, of course, my heart goes out to these guys trying to do their job in these circumstances. And, like, you know, you only have to look at every other video game and the problems they're having as well. It's kind of getting stuff out on time and getting their work done. You know, it's not just Blizzard and it's not just WoW. So of course I can understand that from a human point of view, but that's not going to make, knowing that isn't going to make 9.0 any more fun in like 4 months' time. Like, it's not going to be more fun to play because I know that 9.1 is taking a long time because of COVID, right? It's like, it's still going to be too long, whatever the reason for it. And that's a shame.
Is that your realistic projection? Do you think it's going to be 4 months before we see the official launch of 9.1?
Yeah. I think 3 months at least.
Boy. Oof. You know what we could really use right now is a TBC Classic.
Yeah, but that won't be coming until like August. So yeah, it's tough. It's tough. But I mean, who knows? I might be wrong, but just judging by how little we've seen of 9.1 and the way they were talking about it, it seems likely. Having said that, there is like a bit more to be getting on with in 9.0.5. Just the fact that like they've introduced Valor without even kind of confirming that Valor will be something that goes forward into 9.1. You know, like they were asked in interviews and stuff at BlizzConline, so Valor, is that going to be a permanent feature of the game now? Is that going to move forward into 9.1? And they're like, maybe. They were like incredibly non-committal about it, which, you know, like you don't introduce a system into like halfway through the opening patch and say that you're not even sure if it's going to continue in the rest of the game. Like this is just for patch 9.0.5 potentially. You don't do that if like 9.1 is just around the corner, do you? It's like, yeah, it's kind of crazy.
Feels a little stopgappy, a little stopgappy, but yeah. I mean, Mythics for me, it starts to get into that thing which we've talked about before, but I think I'm there. I think it's important during droughts like this, like if you want to keep playing WoW, right? Like if you're not making WoW content and you're bored, like you don't need to keep playing. Like it's fine. But like there's points in this game in the ebb and flow of it where it's like you just need to make your own goals, right? Like, like I'm bored because I kind of feel like I've done all I care to do in a solo and like raid environment. There's more I'd like to do in raiding, but for the most part, I kind of feel like I've seen what I want to see. And but I haven't really engaged with Mythics like this expansion. So Valor's here, so it's a really good excuse for me to want to start looking into that, which means I should probably dust off my WoW group, like those little social groups, Taliesin. You know, it's a good way to interface with people across servers.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah. Hey, I renamed it. I renamed mine right before the show. There was an old one laying around from like the when I used to do classic and coffee streams. But I renamed the group this morning. Do you know what I renamed it to?
What?
DHC.
What's that?
He hasn't had his coffee this morning. Dick Hungry Chicken, man.
Ah! I thought it was like Denathrius Heroic.
Oh, well, you know. But yeah, so like,
hey, that guy is a dick hungry chicken, and you know it.
So, so anyway, if anyone in the sound of my voice wants to, run some Mythics with someone who's bad at them because he hasn't been doing them, I threw it into a bit.ly. So go to bit.ly/WowKiller group, and that'll send you to that social group in World of Warcraft. So enjoy, everybody. I'll hit you up. Yeah. I'll hit you up for some bad Mythic runs.
I'm good. I still got like a reason to log in every day at the moment. I am the kind of player that does love kind of pottering around and getting my Covenant Hall like upgraded. And it would be nice to kind of, if my gear grind is kind of a bit on autopilot now, it would be nice to kind of just focus on upgrading my Covenant Hall a little bit, my 4 Covenant Halls, and getting the weekly things done. Like I've been watching Evitel do a lot of her Path of Ascension recently. Which is the Kyrian kind of weekly quest or whatever it is. Like, what's your main Covenant?
Night Fae.
So yeah, it's like the equivalent of the gardening kind of mini game. So whereas you go in and you water some spirits and they give you like some chocolate or whatever, like Path of Ascension, you become one of your soul binds and you fight baddies. It's like a brawler's guild. It's brilliant. It's so much better than watering spirits or being a waiter at a party, which is what the Venthyr one is. It's really good. It's like a genuinely cool mini game, and you progress it and you get new kind of transmogs and things like that you unlock, and new fun things like that. And you need Anima to unlock different parts of it, but then you also kind of level up by doing it and what have you as well. And you get a really cool kind of more sworn or forsworn like purple version of the Bastion transmogs from doing it, and it's just really cool. It's just really, really awesome. And then I'm like, well, okay, cool, well, I'd like to do that on one of my characters, but also I suppose I need to do my being a waiter, a Venthyr waiter game, and also the one I'm really keen on spending a bit more time with, which I just haven't had time to do at all yet, is the Necrolord one, which is you build your abomination and you dress it in cool hats and stuff. You don't just get to build it, Garrett. You get to dress it in cool hats.
I mean, who doesn't want to put a cool hat on an abomination?
That has cool hats, except you.
I haven't gotten to that any of those points with my alts, so I still have only interfaced with like endgame Night Fae. And with the Kyrian one, do you get to keep your abilities, or are you also like, is it replace your bar? Are you basically like vehicling the sucker?
It's essentially a vehicle game.
Ooh, okay. The bottom of that just might.
They have different abilities and stuff, and different bosses that you fight. It's really cool. It's really cool.
I'll stick to gardening. Thank you very much. Listen, man, I have a garden in real life, and I'm very, very bad at it. So the Queen's Conservatory, that lets me live out my dream of actually being good at gardening.
Fair. And like Anima-wise, I'm looking to unlock my transportation network and things like that. One of the most interesting things about this patch for me, this point 0.5, is in many ways, I've talked about this on stream, but in many ways, like the worst case scenario happened with some of it, because a main focus of the patch is like class tuning and covenant ability tuning as well, and legendary tuning. And, for most classes, most specs, there's a little bit to think about, but not much. There are a couple of examples where, depending on your spec, your BIS covenant is now different. And depending on the type of gameplay that you mostly do, there are a couple of examples now where the tuning that's happened in this patch means that your best, most optimal covenant for your spec has changed. And when we were talking about the covenants and the exclusive covenant abilities that come with them, and this is what kind of one of the things that was behind the whole pull the ripcord thing was like, it wasn't the only argument in favor of pull the ripcord by any means, but it was a prominent one, was the whole, well, what happens when they tune covenants and your BIS covenant changes and you have to change covenant? This was literally, and we've identified it on videos ourselves as being one of the worst case scenarios that could possibly happen. And so if you are prot warrior, well, I mean, unlucky anyway, but yeah, now you're seriously looking at being a Necrolord because of the changes to banner. You're seriously looking at, if you're a holy priest who likes doing Mythic Plus, you're seriously looking at being Night Fae now because the Fae Guardian's ability has been buffed so dramatically. And, we identified this as being a worst case scenario. And yet, the people who have the classes that might want to be changing are actually really excited about it. Far from it being like, only in the examples I've seen, I'm sure like people who are listening to this or who are seeing it or watching us record it live, I'm sure there'll be examples of people that are really annoyed that they have to change covenant or whatever. But just from my experience and seeing people reacting to it, far from it being something that is ruining the game for people, like the people that are changing covenant are amongst the happiest players I know right now. Like, prot warrior players who are changing to Necrolord are chuffed about it. They're really excited about it. They're like, yeah, get to change to Necrolord. Awesome. Have you seen Banner? It's cool now. And like same with Holy Priest changing to Night Fae. They're like, yeah, awesome. Have you seen what Fae Guardians is doing? I get to change to Night Fae now. This is awesome.
I mean, when you
think about that, in this case at least, or so far, we might have incorrectly identified that as a worst case scenario because people are pretty thrilled about it.
Well, when you think about it too, and because I'm with you, it does seem a bit strange that there's a subsection of players who are like, yes, freaking awesome. I get to change my covenant. But when you think about when it's landing and you think about the conversation, at least I was having and incorrectly lumping you into with being a bit bored with Shadowlands at the moment, it's kind of the perfect time. If you have to go and switch covenants, well, what else are you doing right now? Like, why not? And this isn't a dig. Like this, if there was a time for Covenant tuning, I think right now in a lull while we wait for 0.1 is a really, really healthy time to do that tuning, because we have the time as players. And especially, I think if you're what I would consider a more traditional World of Warcraft player and you really, really focus on one main, like, you should feel empowered to make that switch right now.
Yeah. I think an important aspect of it as well is they are changing to a Covenant that has been buffed. So there was an ability that wasn't so good and it got better, and they want to go to that ability which is now, better than the one they had. And importantly, their ability that is with their Covenant hasn't been nerfed. Like, another one has been buffed and they are chasing that one. They're going, oh, that ability is really cool now, so I'm going to swap to that. It's not a case of their Covenant got nerfed and now one that didn't even get changed is better than it, and they're swapping to it for that reason. Like, an ability got better and now they want to swap to that Covenant to use that, rather than they're making the change because something got better rather than because something got worse. Put it that way. They're making the change because of a buff rather than because of nerf. And if it was the case that, their Covenant ability had been nerfed and, now some other ability that didn't get touched at all is better as a result, that's going to feel a lot worse than, changing Covenant to because like an ability has been buffed, I guess. Like, changing because of a buff is always going to be better than changing because of a nerf.
Yeah, it's exciting because you're in pursuit of power as opposed to as opposed to fleeing from a sinking ship, right?
Yeah, totally. I think that's probably an important psychological aspect to it as well. So yeah, like, suddenly being excited about using this ability, which has been kind of made better, is psychologically much more empowering than jumping from a sinking ship. Absolutely. But what it means is that as a priest, disciplined priests are going to be the few Venthyr priests around these days, and I feel kind of cool about that. I feel pretty good about it as well, because I ain't going Night Fae.
I was about to say, yeah, like, if you don't want to switch Covenant, just do what I did and join the wrong Covenant from the get-go.
Yeah.
Then, it's not gonna as a Night Fae warrior, I'm doing it wrong since the launch of the damn expansion. But I love this Covenant, and that's where my warrior is going to live, damn it. I have planted my flag, and I ain't gonna be planting no banners.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although the banner changes are actually pretty exciting. They're really cool over in Necrolord.
That's great.
And as I was leveling up at the beginning of Shadowlands, I was like, I want to go Necrolord because the set that's what I want. I want to be a bone warrior. It's so good. Freaking good looking. But as I actually went through and did the Shadowlands leveling experience, I just fell so damn in love with Ardenweald as a zone, and I really like Ancient Aftershock. That is just one of the coolest damn abilities I've ever used in World of Warcraft. And I knew I was going to be doing a lot of soloing Torghast as a prot warrior, and so it didn't look that was pretty nice there. To the fact that when I do join my raid, I do it as a fury warrior. That is problematic, but such is life. It was already problematic to just be a warrior at the beginning of this expansion. So
yeah, I mean, you're not wrong.
It wasn't. It's a lot better now. I'm really enjoying it. I'm really stoked that fury has kind of edged out arms because I was not enjoying arms. So I'm having a really good time with my warrior right now, but I ain't switching to Necrolord. We'll see. Maybe, I don't know. but yeah, it's interesting. Are you excited about any class changes to priest? Because for me over on warrior, the class changes were subtle as hell.
Yeah, and mostly so for particularly disciplined priests that I play. Basically, our main raid ability has been nerfed pretty substantially, but it's that annoying thing where, okay, so it's Spirit Shell, right? Which is a pretty degenerate form of gameplay. It's like, there's no one that would, all things being equal, would choose Spirit Shell to be the strongest way to play Disc. Everyone would, anyone who plays Disc would much rather that Rapture was the optimal way of playing, but it's not. Spirit Shell is so strong. It just covers everyone with amazing absorbs. It's always going to be really, really good. It's like in a raid environment, it's kind of always going to be better than Rapture unless it's complete trash. So Blues nerfed it, not enough to make Rapture the better pick. So it's still the go-to ability for raid. Like you still wouldn't pick Rapture for it instead of Spirit Shell for raid, but now it's just worse, which doesn't feel good because like you haven't given me any more choices by nerfing this. You've just made my one and only choice less good. So fuck me, I guess.
Oh, okay, yeah,
it's still strong. It's still fine. It's whatever.
Gotcha. Well, hey, listen, man. I can't intervene targets under the effect of Cyclone anymore, so it's real exciting over on the Warrior.
Oh wow! And I think I have problems.
I mean, they upped the what is I think the damage bonus of targets on the effect of Thunderclap, which is kind of neat. You know, I do a lot of solo protection plans, so that's cool. And to their credit, they've really been already helping Warrior out a lot in as far as damage is concerned. Our damage has been going up over the course of Shadowlands, so I wasn't really expecting any major changes. So,
well, and that's the thing. Like, you know, when we're talking about the class changes and the legendary changes and the covenant changes, in very very few cases is there anything that kind of amounts to a rework. Right, so rogues got their Necrolord ability reworked. Serrated Bone Spike kind of works a tiny bit differently and has essentially been buffed by about 300% in damage. Their Venthyr ability got completely reworked. So they're a good example of that. But most people, it's not really, and same with legendaries as well. It's more kind of like if you are choosing to use this suboptimal covenant or this suboptimal legendary, then you can feel a bit better about it now. It's kind of been brought more into line with the others, but it doesn't like really change anyone's BIS legendary for the most part. It doesn't change people's BIS covenant for the most part. There's not like root and branch changes happening with these abilities, apart from the notable examples that I've given and a couple of others here and there. The Necrolord again, Demon Hunter ability's been made a lot more less obnoxious, I should say. It's still a little bit obnoxious, and that's all dandy and great and fantastic. But yeah, generally, it is the kind of changes that most players, if they're already playing optimally, aren't going to notice. Which is nice, isn't it?
I mean, yeah, it's funny. Like these are things we see in other games, and it reminds me the most of Heroes of the Storm, oddly enough, because like a lot of times when we get patch changes, you look at a lot of changes, and you just go, "Oh, they're just buffing talents that nobody picked." And that was like the vibe I was getting when I was going through the changes to legendary powers.
Yeah,
I was just going through. Oh, okay, these are just all the powers that no one's using. And who knows?
Buffing, but not enough to make people really use them if they weren't using them already.
Right.
It would be that thing of like, oh, now I just don't feel like such an idiot for using this. But I'm not, if I'm already using my best in slot legendaries, and I'm not going to swap to these other ones that have been buffed for the most part. I'm sure there's like one or two examples you could give where that does happen.
Yeah. I think the one example that I'm curious if it'll end up kind of working out over time is it's Will of Berserker for Warrior, because I know that's one that was like technically good, but the short duration on it is kind of what made it not make the cut. And now that its duration has been extended, I'm kind of curious if we're going to see any Warriors start using that one. But other than that, all of them, I was just like, yeah, I'm just going to stick with Signet. Okay, I guess I'm still doing that.
And look, don't get me wrong now, because I can see how people are going to think about this episode of the podcast, and people are going to think I'm being really down on WoW in this episode. And I'm not at all. Like there's nothing necessarily bad or wrong with anything that I've described in the changes or in the patch. Like, it's very unusual that we get a 0.5 patch in the opening patch of an expansion before a 0.1 in the modern era, which is what you can compare it to. And I think it's really cool that they have done that. Like all things being equal and ignoring implications for how long it means the proper patch, as it were, is going to be. It's fantastic that they've done this. And it's fantastic that we've got like a halfway patch with tuning and, a whole new kind of like upgrade system put in as well. It's really cool. I think it's great. If you ignore all of the terrible implications.
Yeah. And, I know I was kind of like making a joke out of it, but like, when I was talking about it, like how excited I am that I can get my weekly Anima grind done so much faster. But that's like, it's also like one of the things that I've been talking. What is one of the number one reasons I've been whining about wanting flying, right? It's like, because I want to go get my alts on, and I'm done. I've seen the zones. I want to do it quicker. I want to, just get my weekly grinds done faster. And while I'm not getting that, seriously upping like how quickly you can get some anima, especially like a big burst of 500 doing just your usual, I'm going to go get Souls quest. Like that's alt friendly. Now I'm also getting like okay, I should probably go spend some more time on my alts. I bet I'm going to like it more.
Hey, you know what else is alt friendly, Garrett? You know what else helps out with your alts? Having a mount that can mount in the moor.
Oh, hey, yeah.
Do you have one of those? Because I do, obviously, because I did Twisting Corridors because I'm a baller. What about you?
No, I don't. No, because my maximum burnout is definitely Torghast. I missed Soul Ash last week.
All your alts need to be either druids or worgens.
I am a little druid curious. No, man, I want Death Knight next. I want a Death Knight. I want that bone armor.
You're definitely going to need a mount that can mount in the moor. Now, of course, in 9.1, all mounts can mount in the moor. But for the time, and like we've already said, that patch is 30 years away. We'll be on to Legion Classic by the time 9.1 comes out. So, like, in the meantime, you're going to want a moor mount, and there is the craftable one that you can get now in the moor, and there's no time gating on it. You could go and get it right now if you want, Garrett. Is that what you want? Would you like a mount that you could mount in the moor and then your life would be better? You could stop fucking whining about it all the
time. I mean, I do want to clear Twisting Corridors, but
no, but you don't have to clear Twisting Corridors.
I know. I just kind of want to.
Let's be honest, Garrett. If you haven't cleared Twisting Corridors, you're just not a good enough player to do it by now. So I'd give up on that, and I'd focus instead on grinding out this.
Tell me again about how you soloed it like a baller.
I sold it like a baller, and to the extent where, like, I realized pretty early on that soloing it would be too easy. So what I decided to do was I decided to take a group in there and just carry them as well.
Oh,
so I wasn't just doing it for myself. I was boosting 4 other people who happened to have item level quite a bit higher than mine.
Boosting them with your killer.
I carried them because they didn't know what they were doing. And I was like, come on, team, I'll take you to Twisting Corridors with me. And that's what I did. I let them ride on my coattails. I let them surf the wave of my Twisting Corridors triumph, and surf the wave they did. And if they looked like they were going to fall, I was like, if you fall, I'll catch you. And I did, because I was healing it, and I took them with me. And lucky them, getting a free mount from it.
Yeah. I could definitely start working towards that craftable mount, or I could remind people that if you're Alliance, you can join this social group in game at bit.ly/wowkiller group, and just send me a DM. Let me know if you want to get up to some Twisting Corridors or some Mythics. It's fine. It's fine.
That I haven't heard such a desperate plea to get carried to a moor mount in my entire life.
What are you talking about?
See the fool. Oh, listen, I've got to say though, Garrett, like, since you're obviously not keen on grinding out this craftable one in the moor right now, since you're not keen on that, I can tell. By the way, you keep trying to change the subject. I will say that honestly, apart from just how much easier it makes doing like more stuff, obviously, doing the intro more scenario on alts, that annoying intro you have to do every time?
Yes.
Having a mount that you can do it on makes it so much better. Like, I don't dread starting a new alt through there anymore because I know that I can just mount up on that bad boy. Basically, the only bit of that intro that's a pain in the ass now is listening to Jaina and Thrall talk for half an hour about the jailer. And then forgetting to click on Thrall to make the conversation carry on. That's the only bit that I hate about the intro now. Now that I can mount up, so easy. So easy. Oh, and that annoying bit where Jaina makes everyone invisible right before the very end. Like, when you've just like saved Bane and brought him back, and then you're like, yay, it's almost the end of this scenario. And then Jaina's like,
that time where you've never hated.
Walk very, very slowly towards the top and also stop quite a lot and be really boring. That's the bit I hate now.
Yes, I do want that. That is that's probably my biggest critique of this patch. I can't believe they haven't removed that goddamn intro sequence. Like, why is that still required?
It's quite fun when you've got a mount, and that's all I'm saying, Garrett. If you can't do the twisting corridors, and that's fine, it's a skill-based thing. There's no shame in not having that skill. If you can't do that, you can now craft the Maw mount. All you have to do, and it's like an hour or so's work. It's like an hour and a half grind, like easy game. All you have to do is be like exalted with Venari. Are you exalted with Venari?
No, because I don't have a Maw mount. So what am I? Why would I want to be out there?
Forget I said anything.
Why would I want to be there?
Maw mount. Nothing for you here. I wish I'd never brought it up. Now I feel embarrassed that I ever brought it up. I'm so sorry.
You know what I do when I get burnt out with things? I stop doing them to keep myself sane.
I'm not burnt out with them more because I've never done any of it really. Like I took one look at that and I was like,
so what you're saying is you are also not even close to exalted with Venari, but it doesn't matter because you already have them out.
Is the long and the short of it, Garrett? Yes.
Yeah.
Because, like, it would be nice to be exalted with Venari so I could, like, grind Stygia to put gem slots on my gear. But what's the point in that? Because I'm on a raid break.
Yeah.
My gearing is pretty much an autopilot now. Like, I'm going to be picking up bits of gear from, Mythic Plus, which I will then use my Valor, which is just sitting around doing nothing, to level up. And that'll be fun. Nothing wrong with that. It's going to be great. And I will end up with better gear than I would have had otherwise. But am I going to spend Stygia putting gem slots on that shit? Am I bollocks? No, I'm not. No. But, I quite enjoy running around the Maw when I go. When there's like a new quest up for me or something, a new bit of progression for me where she's all like, oh, champion, here is some story. And I'm like, yeah, load me up. I'll do it. Love that stuff. And that's why I like the Maw, because every time I go into the Maw, Venari's sending me to some new place. She's like, whoa, go to Petition Hold. Shit's badass. And I'm like, yeah, okay, cool. And I go to Petition Hold and it's pretty fun. I'm not going to go back there.
It turns out the Maw is just fine when you don't interface with it as often as the game would like you to.
It's fine. And then she's all like, yo, champion, go to the Beast Warrens. Here's a little runes you don't get at. And I'm like, okay, cool. This is quite nice. Whole new area. It's quite fun, isn't it? And here's the thing, right? One of the things about 9.1 is that it kind of suggests that, I think we all expect Torghast and the Maw. We all expect them to be features like Warfronts and like Iron Expeditions that are in place for the rest of the expansion. Like, I think in the back of our heads, we all expect the Maw to be a thing that we're always going to have a reason. Like, every patch that comes out, there's always going to be some bullshit reason to go to the Maw and grind Stygia. But 9.1 kind of putting a cap on that sort of stuff, like, it kind of suggests that we're going to be done with the Maw pretty much after 9.1. It kind of suggests that actually it won't be this thing that is there throughout the entire expansion. You're going to be able to mount up in 9.1 on any mount and run around it. And like much of the Maw will be taken over by the Covenants. That's kind of the whole story of it. And then you're going to do the raid, the Chambers of Domination or whatever it's called, where, clearly at the end of that, the jailer is going to escape from the Maw. And I wouldn't be surprised if that's kind of the end of grinding the Maw. Like, and in 9.2 forwards, it's just not something we're going to do. And there'll be different stuff to do. And I think that would be awesome. And I wouldn't put it past that to be the plan, to be honest. I think that'd be great because in my head, like, Torghast and the Maw is just something that's always going to be there. But I feel like maybe not.
I feel like Torghast will, because it's still the way we grind Ash, right? And we're just going to be grinding Ash for...
Yeah, but they could introduce like a different way of grinding Ash, or
they could. I feel like if they were going to do that though, they would have done something this patch. But
really, I don't know, man. Like, I feel like in their kind of roadmap, it's like, well, okay, we're taking down the Maw in 9.1, and the jailer is escaping from the Maw at the end of the raid. So, those other things will be like thematically, they'll make sense to bring in a little bit later. They'll make sense to bring in patch 9.2 and stuff. And it suggests that whatever happens in 9.2 is pretty big, and it's going to change a lot of the whole kind of thrust of the expansion. If the storyline of the expansion in 9.1 is, like 9.0 is you're doing stuff for your covenant and you're rebuilding your covenant and your covenant zone. And then 9.1 is like all the covenants are working together to take out the jailer in the moor. And that's what we're doing. We've all got like little areas where we're kind of camped out in the moor. And it's a much less kind of oppressive place now. And also the raid, you're dealing with Sylvanas and you're dealing with Kel'Thuzad, and you're dealing with the seat of the jailer pretty much, and then the jailer will escape at the end of it, obviously. And it kind of does it wipe the slate clean, really, for 9.2 to kind of go off and do whatever it wants. And you can have any other zone in the Shadowlands that you want, and that can be where everything happens from now on. And you can have they've shown in 8.2 that they're willing to have one zone where the bulk of the story happens, but then another zone where you can do some grinding and stuff. And there's no reason why they can't do that again in 9.2 and have like a whole different thing instead of the moor where this kind of stuff happens. I don't know. We'll see.
What if Torghast is mobile? What if it moves? What if if part of the jailer is escaping, he like brings his floating castle with him?
Could be. Or here's what will probably happen with Torghast. Because all I'm saying about this is at the moment, it's more likely that we'll be done with the moor rather than Torghast. I get that.
I think that's fair. Yeah.
So especially with 9.1 being so more themed as well, you'd have thought it feels like they're blowing their more load, right, in 9.1. And
there's got to be a better way to say that.
And they're doing it specifically because they want to be able to wipe the slate clean. They want to wring all of the story out of the moor that they feel is there. And I think that's actually really cool. If we do move on completely from the moor in 9.2, I think it's good that we've got an entire patch set in it in 9.1.
It'd be a pretty unique kind of feeling too, because usually we're used to new lands coming in, but we still have reasons to interface with the old ones because of world quests and whatnot, right? But if it really did feel like there was a clean break, we are done. Narratively, we moved on from them all, and also we just don't go there anymore except to get to Torghast.
Yeah.
That would be pretty unique.
Thematically and lore-wise and story-wise, there's plenty of reason to go and do Torghast, right? The main story thrust of us going through Torghast is to release souls that are in the moor unjustifiably. And it's where the souls from Teldrassil are. They're in Torghast, and so there's reason for us to go and free souls from Torghast. That's all the story kind of thrust you need. It's champion, it's good that we've liberated the moor and stuff, but there are still loads of souls trapped in Torghast. So if you pop in there a couple of times a week and just let them out, that'd be great. We'll give you some soul ash for it. How's that?
Now I want that to be narratively at the end of point 1, because the new zone that's coming, we're going to be hanging out there with all the covenants descending upon it, right?
Yeah.
I think at the end of it, if that's the case, where the story that they're giving us is there's still, okay, the jailer's not in Torghast anymore, but there's still souls in there, just keep breaking them out. I want all the covenants to pimp out that Venari cave. We have just moved in, and it's not, yeah, make it nice. Build a little inn, have a little bar in there with some brokers making drinks. Venari totally gets out of town because there's any other broker there, and she's like, "Oh, damn, okay, I'm out. See ya." It'd be
awesome. I'd be totally down with it. I'd be in favor of it. And for me, that would that'd be a really satisfying payoff to the moor, I think. Now, the problem is, of course, that's going to be what looks like probably about a year and a half's worth of play by the time we get to 9.2. That's the problem as I see it. But, imagine if we were keeping to Legion's schedule on this. That would be fantastic. No problem with the kind of the roadmap of the content. No problem with the order of these things happening and the patches that they're happening in. My only problem with any of this always comes down to scheduling. And I've been saying this since the end of Legion, when the schedule started slowing down again. I was this is one of the most important parts of an MMO.
Yeah.
It's all very well the excellent content, but you need that scheduling as well. And everyone was like, "Oh, Taliesin, no, you're wrong. Blizzard's at its best when it's finished. And I'm like, I don't know, dudes. I don't know. I reckon like
it's almost like it's subtle, and there's a lot of different moving pieces to what makes a WoW expansion feel good, right? It's a
but that would involve nuance, Gareth, and we're not very good at that here.
I mean, explore this hypothetical briefly with me. Like, what would you rather have? Would you have rather had Shadowlands released when it did, or would you rather have them hold the launch of it even further so that they could arbitrarily have a better release schedule of patches?
So what you're saying, Taliesin, you claim to care about scheduling being important in an MMO. So, that by that logic, would you rather not have had the scheduling messed up even more for Shadowlands to try and make the scheduling arbitrarily better? Like, you're still talking about the scheduling being bad, right? Because like holding the release of Shadowlands for longer is an example of bad scheduling. Like if I'm saying, I can't say I'd rather one bit of bad scheduling over another bit of bad scheduling. They're both examples of bad scheduling, which I'm saying is bad. Like,
yeah, I'm just saying, like BFA already had a bad reputation, so why not just let it get worse and worse and worse and stay on it for even longer?
A better thought experiment would be: would you prefer, Taliesin, to have like a kind of half of 9.1 release sooner, and like half of it come a little bit later on, have, instead of waiting for all of this content to be ready, like you claim to care about schedule. You say scheduling is very, very important, Taliesin. So therefore, would it not be better to have like some of the content of 9.1 released just when it's ready, just to have some stuff getting released, and then you and your precious scheduling can all be on track. But it wouldn't be as satisfying as a launch release,
More or less was the hypothetical. Sorry, my camera died again. It really didn't last long at all today. Morning sun overheats that camera.
See, here's the thing. Like, the vast majority of people who listen to this podcast do only listen to it. They don't see, so they had no idea that your camera just went down and I was talking.
No, but I need to explain why my brain completely took a shit.
And so, but then they heard your voice for the first time in a while, and it was just like, oh, didn't last very long at all today. And they're just gonna. I know our audience.
I said camera. I mentioned my camera.
And they're thinking sexy time. They're thinking sex stuff right now because of what you said. And if they weren't, they are now.
Thanks. I appreciate that, Taliesin. It's wonderful. It's really good. I appreciate that.
Something people say to me quite a lot after sex.
Yeah. Listen, the point I'm getting mad Siege of Orgrimmar vibes like right now because, as you mentioned earlier, I think Miss is a phenomenal expansion, but that final patch just overstated its welcome, and now we're having that with our intro patch, and it's just as you said, it's the reality of the world that we find ourselves in right now. And yeah, that's just why I brought up that hypothetical, like, because that's where a lot of the conversation is. And I think you and I are both fine with it. We understand it. We're finding our own fun in World of Warcraft, but like,
isn't it funny? Like, you mentioned Siege of Orgrimmar there, because it is famously a patch that went on for a very, very long time. I might be wrong, but I think Ny'alotha went on longer. I think 8.3, and certainly I think Ny'alotha was the longest running final raid in WoW history. I believe I read that somewhere, and we always use like Siege of Orgrimmar as an example of like this thing that just went on far too long and overstayed its welcome. And you're not wrong to say that, but I think Ny'alotha was there longer. So we've come on the back of like everything that's happening in Shadowlands now, the Shadowlands delay, and the fact that 9.1 is so far behind the opening of Shadowlands. All of that comes off the back of Ny'alotha, which I think is the longest running final raid in WoW.
I don't know offhand, but also I was trying to. I also still like it as a touch point because I think of Miss as a good expansion, like not to like shots fired at BFA or whatever. Like I still had a lot of fun in BFA, but I think Miss is a far superior expansion to BFA, and it's still. I have a negative association with the end of it, but by just virtue of it overstayed its welcome.
But yeah, and you don't even have to shit on BFA to say that, because I think Mists is a far superior expansion to most other WoW expansions. Like it's in my top 4. Absolutely. Like,
you had to think about that for a second, didn't you? It's in my top 4.
Easily top half, and like I would honestly put it in my top 3, at least. Mists. I think it's like a phenomenal expansion.
I think I'm Legion, Lich King, Mists. I think that's my top 3.
So you agree with me? It would be in your top 3. Yeah.
Yeah. No. Yeah. I wasn't trying to put on a face and say I didn't agree with you, Taliesin.
Oh no, I know that. But like, I'm glad we agree on this. I think it's a good. Easily in my top 3, maybe in my top 2. It's like I would at the moment, and this is the annoying thing, is like content-wise, Shadowlands could be up there, like is up there so far with like the best expansions.
Covenants are
but,
really
like,
good.
As we've discussed ad nauseum, like is kind of letting it down. But I mean, you know, like I could potentially put Shadowlands somewhere near the top at the moment. But yeah, otherwise I'm looking at Legion and Wrath and Mists, and I'd honestly put Legion first and Mist second at the moment. I think it's a phenomenal expansion. So what I'm saying is, saying that Mists is vastly superior to an expansion isn't necessarily shitting on that expansion. It's like, oh, well done. You're not as good as like my basically favorite WoW expansion. It's like, yeah.
I always want to disclaim my comments about BFA, because again, it's like I have enjoyed every WoW expansion. I just have my favorites, and when I say shit like, yeah, BFA is probably my second least favorite expansion, it's like I still had a really good time with it. Like it's just something's gotta claim that slot, and that's where BFA goes for me personally. So
fair.
But yeah, point being, anyway, it's just like to me, Miss is a more apt analogy, because I think Shadowlands is on par, if not exceeding, Mists of Pandaria in its quality. But you know, I'm still kind of finding that it feels a little old and moldy, and it's just a scheduling thing. So I'm right there with you. This is a really long way to say Taliesin, and I know you love hearing this. I agree with you.
I do love hearing that. Say it again.
No, because now you made it weird.
And this time, call me daddy.
Crawl to me.
And I'll just splatter you across my walls. It's fine. It'll be good. Oh man, I'm gutted that we're not running Nyloth anymore. I still haven't got that chess piece from Stone Legion Generals, which I really, really need. So I'm going to have to start doing it on stream, I guess, once my internet is sorted out and I can actually upload and actually.
Did you say Nyalotha?
Did I say Nyalotha?
I meant a second. I'm like, wait a minute.
Nyalotha's over at all.
There's a ton of gear I still need out of raid. I've just the last few weeks some personal stuff's come up and I haven't been able to join in on the raid. But I hope to be getting back to it next week, because my guild is still running multiple times a week. So, and they are my favorite people. They are so kind and let me flake out when I'm too busy with other things and they don't hold it against me. So
I would also love to jump in and do some Mythic as well, because I haven't done any of that this expansion at all. Our guild just hasn't touched Mythic. It's a real shame.
Yeah,
and I miss
it's a good raid.
Like, just casually doing some Mythic raid, you know.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You're just casually doing Mythic.
Yeah, but I mean, you can. Like, those first 3 bosses in Mythic are usually very doable by a heroic guild. And you can just kind of jump in there and see what you can do without having to kind of really set yourself up like a Mythic guild, right? Because there's a whole level of play and planning and organization that has to come into force when you're raiding Mythic that you don't have to bother with when you're raiding heroic. But usually those first 2 or 3 bosses on Mythic are doable with the heroic mindset, and I miss doing that.
Yeah. Well, before we end, you want to take an email?
Oh yeah.
We mentioned BlizzCon Line, and we've got someone who's a little miffed at a comment that was at BlizzCon Line that we haven't talked about yet on this show. So. By the way, folks, if you want to write it, wowkillercast@gmail.com is where you can do so. Or tweet at wowkillercast if you got a short thing on Twitter, and I'll pull it in as a Q&A. But Uthos wrote in and says, "Hi, guys. I just watched BlizzCon and came away disappointed. I understand how hard COVID has been and can only imagine the delays. That's on topic so far with this episode. They say they do not want to misspend dev time, but one example I am particularly displeased with is the 3 unique Undead Death Knight skin tones, and they could easily make available to all classes. In the expansion of Death, I can't imagine why they would not allow as much customization as possible. That is just one example that would require very little dev time. Imagine how many more there are. Unlocking particular transmog restrictions based on race could be another. Let my Night Elf warrior use Warglaives, for example. I think they could have done better. Love always, Uthos. So kind of getting into their conversation about there's not going to be more customization options in Shadowlands, which was a bit that came out of the Q&A that, some players took umbrage with.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I feel like Shadowlands introduced so many new customization options, and it was a huge job, and they all came right at the very beginning. And so I feel like if you took it on its own terms, and if you said, did Shadowlands give me loads and loads more customization options, and are the customization options that are in the game like really good now and also far superior to what they were before, then obviously they are, yeah, and there's not much to complain about there. I feel like what people are actually angry about is the fact that the devs said that there would be more and that they would introduce more throughout the expansion. And now they've gone back on that and they said they're not. So I feel like people, when they react to this, aren't so angry about the actual customizations or lack of them, because there isn't really, and more that the feeling that devs have reneged on something that they said. And yeah, fine, be upset about that if you want. But in the grand scheme of things, like, is it more important to be angry about that? Or can you look at like the customization options that came with this expansion and say, yeah, those are really good? And you can, and that's the important thing, really. It's not like, one of the things obviously people get upset about allied races and the fact that allied races, particularly the Nightborn, they now, it's very noticeable how few customization options they have. It was always noticeable how little customizations options they had facially, and people have always been disappointed with those. And people were kind of holding out hope that they would be among the races that got a bit more attention as the expansion went on. Feel like that was always a very slim hope anyway, to be honest, because they did kind of say that allied races were bottom of the list of races that they wanted to get to and work on. So I feel that you were always setting yourself up for disappointment if you were holding out hope that the Nightborn were going to get some love. And I'm not saying that's right that they didn't, but pragmatically looking at it, they were kind of always going to be last in line, no matter how much they might need it, just because they were the most recently added. So there's that, and I can understand it, and I can understand people being upset about it. But honestly, it almost to me feels a bit churlish to be upset about there not being more customization options when honestly there was that huge dump of like really, really great new customization options at the beginning of Shadowlands from all of the old races. Like, there's no one out of the old races that didn't get like some awesome things and some incredible like updates that were just kind of unimaginable before. Obviously humans are like the obvious ones, and blood elves are the obvious ones as well. But like every race got some fantastic stuff, like some really, really good stuff. And would I rather like Blizz added stuff for the sake of it, just so they could be adding stuff if it's not going to really add much? Not really. No, I think the stuff they have added is really, really good. There's stuff that's in the files that never made it to game, and this is stuff that I always get confused at with Blizz. Like, you see it with transmogs and weapons and stuff all the time. Like, the time comes and Wowhead data mine a whole ton of stuff, and they'll data mine a whole ton of mounts and a whole ton of like transmog recolors and a whole ton of like weapon transmogs and things that never ever make it to the game. And it happens like every major patch, you see it. And there's still like a whole ton of Kultiran transmog, including beanie hats. Okay, we never got our beanie hats. And they were in the files, and they were there, and they were transmog options that never made it to the game. And I think the example of having the different Forsaken Death Knight skin tones as well is another one. Like, those things are in the files. They could just like, okay. I don't know much about game development, Garrett, and I feel like I should say that. But also, how hard can it be? Press a button, put those things in the game, make them happen there. Yeah, they're there. Put the beanie hats in, put the different Death Knight Forsaken skin tones in. It's easy. Press a button, Blizz. And now maybe the reason they're not in there is because they tried pressing the button on like their internal build, and it made half the houses in like Stormheim disappear, because that can happen as well with a game as old as WoW, where the coding is so like web-like and kind of, you know, it does that is often the excuse. It's like, well, yeah, you know, we tried to give Forsaken like black eyes or whatever, and when we pressed the button, most of Ice Crown disappeared, and we don't know why. And that's always a possibility, for sure. But on the face of it, yeah, there's so much stuff which is in the files. They don't even need to make this stuff. It's already there. And why can't they just make it happen? I don't know. But then I don't know.
Yeah, I try to always temper my conversations around like, it should just be so easy to do X with like, who the hell knows? Like, but at the same time, when the files are in the game, when they're available to like other races or classes, that's where my brain just goes, really, how hard could it truly be? And also like, but I always ask people like, spin it into curiosity. Like I wonder why they don't do that. And I would love to ask a developer that question. Yeah. Like what is the limitation there? And it's the kind of thing that I don't usually expect to get a real answer to, because I bet it comes down to like, well, we need to hire more people. If we had infinite money to throw at the problem, sure, it would probably get done. But it might just be, sorry, my team's just been allocated elsewhere. And that's a level of transparency I don't expect to ever get from really any development team, especially not the World of Warcraft one, because they're a little cagey over there.
And like also in terms of, you know, priorities as well, like if you've just tuned into the show, hi, welcome. We've basically been talking about how long 9.1 is going to take to get here. And like at the moment, I don't really want to see people going, hey, we did a new haircut for Worgen. I don't give a shit. Okay, get 9.1 out. Like, stop making haircuts for Worgen. I don't need haircuts for Worgen. I don't need new faces for it's like, obviously we shouldn't having to be making these compromises, but like, you know, what I want to see is like stuff from the new zone. Like what I want to see is stuff from the new dungeon. That's the stuff I want to see people working on. That's the stuff I like surely has to take priority at the moment.
Yeah. And it's funny you say that too, because I also typically like, I try to keep in the back of my mind that usually that's not how it works. Like the team is really usually like strongly delineated. Like the person doing haircuts isn't coming up with the raid for 0.1. However, if like in a Q&A, like at BlizzCon, you mentioned like they don't want to misspend dev time, that does invite that point of comparison, right? It's just like, oh, well.
Yeah, they do invite those points of comparison, because like, don't forget, the reason they said we're getting the tree mount, okay, is, or apparently some people have managed to get the tree mount at this stage, is because like, you know, with the delay to Shadowlands and stuff, the people that designed mounts had a bit of extra time. So they were like, why don't we show how much we love the player base and make a whole new mount that they can vote on themselves? And that's what they said. They were like, hey, we've got a bit of extra time, so let's make a tree mount, right? Or, you know, whatever mount people vote for. And that's all very well and good. And then they show me the Gladiator mount and the other PvP mount and the new Keystone Master mount that's coming out in 9.1. And they're just recolors of the stuff that's in 9.0. And I'm like, bitch, you said you had time to make a tree mount. Why am I just getting recolors for my Gladiator mount and my Keystone Master mount in 9.1? You literally told us how much time you had and that you had nothing to do. And instead of like just sitting home wanking, you decided to make a tree mount or whatever. Why have we got a recolor for Keystone Master and Gladiator in 9.1? What the fuck are you doing?
If you're an awesome PvP player, you have enough cool mounts, okay? Give the rest of us something cool.
But like, I'm the same as you. I try not to make these like it's not a zero-sum game, right? And like different teams are working on different things, and it's not a case of we're taking stuff away from here to do this. But when you've got your mount designers telling me that you literally had nothing to do, so you made this tree mount, and then you show me the recolors for Keystone Master and Gladiator, which are the same as this season, and you don't usually do that. Usually it's a new mount. You can't tell me on one hand that you had all this time and you had nothing to do. That's why you made a tree mount. And then also here are the recolors for 9.1. It's like, fuck you. Give me the new stuff.
Yep. And listen, get out your WoW Killer bingo cards because I'm about to say I still want to play as any race I could possibly fathom as a Forsaken. Why can't I want to be an undead everything? I realize Forsakens like specifically humans from Lord of Wrong. I don't care. They're resin more things. They've read so many things at this point.
Anyway, and also like just taking it back to customization, because I was talking about this with some people the other day, and I feel like one of the reasons I don't like being sad and complaining about not more customization the lighting in that WoW Q&A in some of the panelists was very, very bad. And poor old Eli was one of the people that the lighting, his setup, wasn't quite as pro as some of the other ones. And that man looked tired and troubled as a result.
Where are you going with this?
And when the few questions that he was allowed to answer, which was, customization, what's going on with that? When are we getting more of that? And he was like, there's not going to be any more customization. And my heart went out to this poor man with his bad lighting that made him look a bit more rundown than he actually is in real life anyway, and it was a bit too high, the lighting, and it made him look like he had these rings under his eyes, and he just gave a little sigh, and he was like, there's not going to be any more customization. And I was like, you poor bastard, I'm so sorry that you have to be the one that breaks this news. But,
well, now you're making me want to talk about everyone who comments on this and says, Garrett looks tired. Listen, I have permanent bags under my eyes, okay? I'm not tired. I'm getting older.
Doesn't he look tired? Yeah, this is just how we look now, fam. I'm really sorry. We're just getting old, okay? Like, I look in the mirror every day and I'm like, God, I look tired. I just need to eat some broccoli or something and I'll be fine. I just need a couple of early nights. It's like, ain't no early night can solve these black rings, mate. Nope. That's just what's under your eyes now because you're an old man. And that's fair enough. But the customization, it's not just like the sheer amount of new customization that we got for Shadowlands. It's the quality and the meaningfulness of it as well. Like the stuff we got was really, really good. And, I play Final Fantasy XIV as well. And something that Final Fantasy XIV players have always said is how far superior the customization is to WoW. And that's just not the case anymore. Like as a player of both games, like the customization for WoW, partly because you have so many more races as well, but even on a race by race like case now is at least comparable to Final Fantasy XIV. I think it's probably better now in Shadowlands than Final Fantasy XIV customization. And like, I mean, what more can you ask for, really? Like, we're never gonna be like an Eastern MMO where we have like sliders and that shit gets old very, very soon anyway. To be honest, like very quickly with MMOs. I think like the customization is top tier in Shadowlands now, like genuinely, and is as good as anything else out there comparably, like genuinely.
Yeah, I mean, other MMOs have more options, but again, it's like this WoW. Compared to WoW's history of customization options, like we really do have an embarrassment of riches now.
Yeah.
That said, can I please get a full beard for my blood elf for the love of God?
Well, yeah. And it does make me laugh that they just clearly don't want blood elves to have full beards. And like thinking about
We're so close. I can have a little Viking braid.
I just love like Danusa sitting there when he's asked about this and just saying like, I just don't really think full beards are a blood elf type thing.
You're wrong. They look so good with their little Viking braid.
What about all of those jokes in Kata where like male blood elves keep getting mistaken for girls? Those kind of vaguely problematic jokes.
Listen, they live in a warm and yet still problematic part of my heart.
Trolls should have full beards, and female dwarfs should have full beards.
Female dwarfs absolutely should have beard options.
Give female dwarves the beards they deserve.
Yeah, I am with you. I am with you there. But listen. You know, I realize right now you look at me, it's a bad example, okay? But when you know, I was a mall emo kid, okay, in the 2000s. I had a beard. Just a few years ago, I looked like a full-on lumberjack, okay? Eventually you get bored, you stop clean shaving, and you just let it go. And that has got to happen for some blood elves, okay? They are out of their mall emo phase. They are now either a craft cocktail bartender or a barista at a local high-end coffee shop, all right? They need their hipster beards.
Just everyone should have beards. It's as simple as that. Like, come on, let's represent the modern world. You know, every race should have big beards because every race looks better with big beards. You know, it's just as simple as that. There's not a race in this game that doesn't look better with a big beard.
Boy, it would be it'd be great if we had like a beard oil sponsor right now. It'd be real good.
Seamlessly into, yeah.
Hit me up. Hit us up. WoW Killer accepting sponsorships.
Draenei is getting a lot more play since they got proper beards in Shadowlands. Like, genuinely, like they just look good now. They got proper beards. They look great.
This can be kind of our final little thought. Do you have a weirdly specific reason you will not play a specific race?
Do you know what? I want to play a male troll so much. Like, whenever I see people's cool troll characters that they put online, I'm like, dude, that looks amazing. Especially with all the new tattoos and shit now, and like all the new eye colors and all the new haircuts and stuff. They just look awesome. And new skin tones. Trolls on paper, like one of the major beneficiaries of the new customization options in Shadowlands. And many a time in my life, I have started making a troll character, and I've taken them out into the world. And this goes for male trolls really more than female trolls, because they stand funny, the female ones. But I always want the male ones to go out and just do their thing and be awesome. And then they start casting a spell. And, you know, I know they've got the vaguely racist voices, and I'm fine with that. I've made my peace with that. I don't like it, but, you know, some of those new skin tones, they look good. And I'm like, okay, right. Well, if I know that they've got the weird voices when I go in, I can live with that. It's fine. And they go in, and I'm like, yeah, my troll looks amazing. My troll looks so good. And then they start casting a spell. You know, I target something, and I'm like, let's do this. Let's spell the shit out of that thing over there. And he starts casting a spell, and I'm like, oh, that doesn't look very good, does it? And then I get a new piece of armor, and I put that on, and I'm like, oh, that doesn't look very good either, does it? Oh. And yeah, I just can't. Something about trolls. They don't wear armor well, and they don't cast spells well.
You're not a fan of the it's like clearly a Kamehameha from Dragon Ball Z when the male trolls do their little ball energy channel.
Yeah, well, I tell myself it's a Hadouken, which makes it a bit better.
Yeah, Hadoukens are like instant though. You know, the Dragon Ball Z, they're sitting there, they're charging up for a while.
Get that close to the floor to do his Hadouken. You know, like, yeah, they're just. I wish I could, because their customization options are amazing and brilliant, and I think they're awesome. And I love troll lore and stuff like that. I think it's really, really good. But yeah, I just can't be doing with the models generally, and the way they wear armor and the way they cast spells doesn't do it for me, unfortunately. It's a real shame.
Mine is
what about you?
Male Draenei run animation. They look so cool standing still.
It's a bit bouncy.
The second they start running, it is like a prance, man. And it's like there's a serious like stick up ass situation going on with like how upright they are, and just their reverse bent knees, just the way they have to run with hooves. God, it doesn't give them the kind of side saddle like hop that the satyr do in Ardenweald, and I'm in. But I can't do their.
I think you can just about get away with it if you put them in some badass plate armor, but like leather wearers or cloth wearers, yeah, it's a major problem for me, that. Absolutely. But like my Death Knight is male Draenei, and he looks mean AF. He is so cool. He is the longest type. Like that Death Knight is the most race changed and faction changed character I own. Like, he's one of my OG characters, and you know, he has been through the whole gamut. And this male Draenei that he is now is the longest he's ever been in a single race, and loving it, in fairness, because he looks pretty cool in the Maldraxxus plate set. And with a big double-handed weapon, ooh, they're pretty good. But yeah, leather or whatever, cloth, nah.
It's just the red animation. I can't get past it, which is a shame because I think Draenei looks so cool. There's such a unique looking like fantasy race, but can't.
Yeah, there is something a bit Kirby-esque about the way they move around the place.
When I see one running around, I just hear the Trollolo song in my head. Like that's just what I imagine. Every single male, they're just going a Trollolo. They're just so jaunty.
I do as well, but I would actually count that as a plus.
You know what? And it's all about perspective. Maybe I should think of that as an exciting feature of playing a Draenei.
Sometimes you just got to lean into that stuff, It's like.
Well, wonderful. Uthos, thank you for your question. Everyone keep writing in wowkillercast@gmail.com. And that's going to do it for this episode of WoW Killer. Thanks so much, everybody, for listening. Around the table, Taliesin folks are unaware of where they can find your wonderful other World of Warcraft content. Where can everyone find you?
You can find us on YouTube, where we talk about World of Warcraft and do our news show. You can find us on Twitter, where we tweet about any old shit. And you can find us on Twitch, where we play WoW. And despite what you might have gathered from this episode of WoW Killer, we actually really have a good time doing it as well. It's great. Shadowlands is great. I'm really I know it might have come across slightly differently in this episode, but Shadowlands is awesome, and I'm really enjoying it, and it's great. It's fantastic. What about you, Garrett? Where can I find you? Because I never can. I go looking for you sometimes when this show's not happening, and I can't find you anywhere. So where can I find you? You never return my calls.
Well, I'm a real life rogue, so I'm always stealth. But Garrett Art on Twitter is where you can follow me on social media, and amove.tv for this podcast and every single other damn one that I produce. We got a patch in Heroes of the Storm. That game they forgot to mention at BlizzCon.
The one that never gets patched or updated.
Yeah. We got a rather sizable patch last week. So if you want to hear all about that, and also kind of how that meta is shaken out, I have another program called Into the Nexus, where you can go and listen to that. But all of that's at amove.tv.
It's like the second most updated Blizz game after WoW.
Yeah, actually, I think it might be more regularly updated than World of Warcraft. It's definitely more updated than Overwatch. Yeah. What are they? They're there sitting for. They're there waiting for their expansion. I'm sorry, I mean sequel. Just joking. The PvE stuff actually looks really freaking rad in Overwatch. But yeah, go to amove.tv for that. Now that I finally remembered to make a short link for that social group, go join bit.ly/WoWKillerGroup to get in that World of Warcraft social group, because I would like to do more mythics. Please and thank you. And maybe Taliesin by this time next week, I will have gotten my ass carried through twisting corridors. Who knows?
I look forward to finding out.
Well, until then, everybody, good luck and have fun.
We all know you won't.